Hello, everybody. Um, my name is Cooper. Uh, my good friend Nick, also known as Quumphy, released a video on Dark Souls and his thoughts on like how on Dark Souls as like a game, why he thinks it's so memorable and why he holds it, I think, to a higher standard than the other games, right? So, he's played all the games. He'll go over this in the video, but he's played all the games. He's platinumed all the games, 100% of all the games, done pretty much everything in all the games. Is probably one of the biggest From Software fans. I know, he's, he's up there, tip top, like he's done it all. He took the time to record and put together a 50-minute video on From Software's game Dark Souls. I mean, and it includes footage from like literally every other From Software action game that's existed. So like he played all the games. He very clearly cares a lot about these games. I have opinions on these games. I'm not like I'm not as probably like a big into it kind of guy as he is, but I do think I have a different experience. I'll sort of talk about like my experiences with the games as I'm going through his video because I watched the video. It lines like there's some moments that I have in mind that I want to talk about things. So I have a different perspective. One thing I will say, I don't believe he's platinumed Bloodborne and Sekiro. Um, if he has Platinum Bloodborne, he hasn't played the Old Hunters DLC. He does talk about that in the video. So I did want to say I have Platinum Bloodborne. I have Platinum Sekiro, I've played all the DLCs, all this stuff. Um, and so I do want to comment on some of the things that he says in this video. He came to me also like while he was making this video, asking my opinions on things, and I was basically like struggling to comprehend how to like answer a lot of the questions he was posing to me. After watching his video, I think I have a better understanding of kind of the things that I want to say. But I thought the best way to do this was to just be like reaction guy. Hi guys, I am a reaction streamer guy. I'm gonna make $1 million off this video. I'm gonna get more views than Quumphy did off of this video because I'm gonna use a clickbait thumbnail, and I'm going to make the video longer because longer videos are better, obviously. And and my face is in the video, so like it appeals to like kids or something. I don't know. YouTube algorithm and such. Anyway, let's get into it. Let's watch this video together. Obligatory, like if you haven't watched the video, like go watch the video. I'm gonna watch the entire video, but I'm gonna like yap over the entire thing, and you probably like should like actually watch the video. Here we go.
I'd like to dedicate this video to Pixen Lim, the narrator of Dark Souls, who passed away as I was finishing the script for this video. Thank you for bringing to life this world that myself and so many that I know have come to care about so much. The Dark Souls trilogy is one of the most talked about pieces of video game media released in the last couple of decades, and the original Dark Souls is known as many things, most iconically for being the Dark Souls of Dark Souls. And to synthesize the game into a couple of strong points, when someone says it has amazing world building or the designs are so inspired, I feel that those simple acknowledgements are missing something. When the game's quality is brought up in passing, as some of its attributes in isolation to one another, it can make it easy to forget some of the many nuanced and intricate reasons that the game earned itself a legendary reputation. And not just the reputation of being difficult for the time, as its sequels would quickly overtake it there. So, I want to explore that with some granularity as we look through some of the secondary and tertiary effects that some of my favorite design choices have on the way that the game is played, replayed, and what that does to the scope of the game.
Okay, first pause of the video. I want to talk about kind of what he said about this game being like surpassed in difficulty by other games. And I think it's something that like, and he'll bring this up more in the video. Dark Souls 1 has a very unique level design, right? Um, it's not really like any of the other games. The other games, people played Dark Souls 1 and they were like, "Wow, like this game is really cool because the bosses are hard." Like, "Oh, Ornstein and Smough. Oh, I shit my pants when Ornstein and Smough because I died 4,000 times to Ornstein and Smough, and oh my god, I can't beat Gwyn. Oh, just parry him, get good." Like the whole get good meme, like the prepare to die edition, like all these things, like, oh, like the game is difficult. I think it's difficult for other reasons than the other games. And like he showed the clip of Melania, right? Obviously, Melania is unfathomably it's like giving like a Monster Energy drink to a pilgrim. Like if you showed like a 2012 Dark Souls player like a Melania, like it would like kill their it would like ruin, I don't know, something. Anyway, I think this game is a bit difficult in other ways, and I think this is something in the time that he's played. I want to say, like, I think he has overplayed and overabsorbed content related to this game. I have as well, but I think I have to a lesser extent, so I still have maybe some perspective. He talks a little bit about like new player experience, and he does have a lot of perspective on new player experience because he brought so many people into the game. But like as somebody who, this is where I'm going to first bring up my experiences with the game. My experience with Dark Souls 1 was like my cousin had it on PlayStation when I was like a kid. I didn't have consoles really. Like I had a Wii and I had like an original Xbox and like a Game Boy and I had like an NES and like an N64. I had like older stuff for my age. Like most people my age had like PS3s or like Xbox 360s or whatever. Or yeah, like most people like that was like the stuff they grew up with, right? So that's where like this game was on those consoles. Um, I didn't really play, like I didn't have this game. I didn't play this game other than in like passing. Like I'd be like at my cousin's house or like at a friend's house, and they'd be like, "Oh, I played Dark Souls. Do you really want to make a character?" Right? I go to my cousin's house. I play Dark Souls every once in a while. Like I got through the game, but like I didn't absorb it on like a high level. Um, and then that was kind of it, right? Like I kind of didn't really touch From Software games until what was it, like 20, what was it, 2015 or something, when Dark Souls 3 came out. And then I had a PC, right? I had a PC because I was like a PC gamer because I played like Team Fortress 2, Counter Strike, like multiplayer experience driven games. So I played like those kinds of games, and Dark Souls 3 came out, and I, for whatever reason, like wanted to play it. So I want to say like I basically started my From Software experience of like actually playing the game like for real with Dark Souls 3. Um, I had played like Bloodborne at a friend's house or something, and I'd watched videos on Bloodborne because like I thought it was cool. But I pretty much started with Dark Souls 3. That was the first game that I got into, and I played the game all the way through myself, like in my own time on my PC. Beat the game, did all this stuff, played all the DLCs, and I was like, yeah, Dark Souls 3. Fucking love Dark Souls 3. And then I kind of went back and was like, oh, well, it's been, like a long time since I played like the first Dark Souls and like Scholar of the First Sin and all that stuff. So let me like go back. So then after I played Dark Souls 3 all the way through, and then I came back and played Dark Souls. Like for real, and for real this time. And like I didn't have my cousin sitting over my shoulder, like telling me like, "Oh, go this way," because if you go that way, there's a thing. And then like I was like younger, and I was like scared of the game because like this game's pretty scary, like dark, like and it's hard, like it's hard for somebody who's like 12 years old probably to like understand like what you're doing, what you're supposed to be doing, especially when you aren't like sitting down with the game. So I came back to it, played Dark Souls in a more recent time, and so I think I have a little bit of perspective on like a new player experience of difficulty of this game. This game's difficulty is in its navigation. It's a difficult game to navigate, and it's a difficult game to get into because of how limited the mechanics of the game are. You only have so many options on how you can approach this game combat wise. That's not to say that there isn't like a wide variety of build options or like character creation options, but in terms of like you have a heavy attack, you have a light attack. You could do a jumping attack, whatever. Nobody uses it. You could do. Pretty much everybody who plays this game has a shield, rolls, heavy attack, light attack. Those are the buttons of this game, and you walk around. That's it. You sprint, I guess. There's other stuff, but nobody uses it. Uh, so you're very limited in terms of like Elden Ring with like jumping attacks, and Sekiro with the like blocking and parrying, and Bloodborne with the trick weapons and changing the weapons and range attacks and guns and all this stuff. Like this game's very, very simple in terms of like how you are allowed to approach encounters. So in terms of that, that's where I think the difficulty of this game comes from. And Josh Strife Hayes has a channel called Josh Strife Plays, where he analyzes like video game design and older video games and classic games and stuff. One quote from him, and I know Nick watches him too. One quote from him that I really like that I feel like encompasses this is you can only approach the game in a certain number of ways. It's limiting on its limitations that need to be exploited by the developer of the game in order to make the game good. Because if you have a simplistic design and the entire game is just fighting hollows, like it's not going to be fun. They had to do things in this game to make the limited ways that you can interact with the world. They had to do things to make it so that's difficult and to make it so that's interesting and that you want to come back to it. So that's what I think the difficulty of this game stems from. And I would say like it's difficult in its own way. Its difficulty is incomparable to the later games because the later games went down different paths. The later games took the combat and they made the combat the entire point of the game. Boss fights, like people who replay these games a lot. They don't play the game. They just boss rush. That's all they do. That's all. From people who do challenge runs to speed runners to anything. If you were replaying a From Software game and you're not like 100, like you're not going for a platinum trophy or whatever, you're boss rushing. Like you're not playing the game. You're not really like exploring the worlds because you've already done that. You know what's around the corner. You know that like the jump scare's here, and you're just gonna walk around it and then get that good item. And then like who cares about the like one like fading soul that's on the other side of the planet? Like you're not gonna walk over there, right? You played as a boss rush. Not this game though. Not this game. This game still requires you to navigate the world in interesting ways. Let's continue.
And what better place to start than with one of the most celebrated features of the original Dark Souls, the map. My party trick is knowing the URL to this bad boy here. This is a model of Lordran, it's a 3D model, and just look at this thing. The first time you set foot in it, this world, which is really just one massive level composed of many, many levels, demands a whole different kind of attention from the player, and it rewards you for getting to know it well. Future Souls games, and especially their early levels, have a much different game design philosophy behind the way that the areas in the world connect to one another. The simplest way I can think to describe it is that they signal to the player that the way of progressing is just walk forward and everything else kind of figures itself out if you're good enough to kill the enemies. I'm especially looking at you, Dark Souls 3. Subsequent games might have more polished looks, but this world has so much soul.
Okay, I'm gonna pause again real quick. I don't think he doesn't really talk about Dark Souls 3 that much. And so I kind of want to bring this up now. One thing about Dark Souls 3 is it does level design in a good way. I think, but it's different, right? Dark Souls 3 has more like secret areas inside these like smaller inside these like think about like Cathedral of the Deep, right? There's all of those like rafter areas and like getting to Rosaria's bedchamber and all the doors that you open up. Like there are all these like secret smaller areas inside the Cathedral of the Deep. It's not an interconnected world as much as like the original Dark Souls per se, but they've taken level design in a different direction with these games, where it's more about like navigating this puzzle of an area, right? Because there's so many turns you can take in the cathedral that might lead you up to the thing. There's like little like ledges you have to roll off of that take you to like slight ledges that you have to. This game has that too. Like I would say uh, going back to the what's that area called where you fight the stray demon. This game still has that kind of thing in Firelink, but it's not too like I think Dark Souls 3 really took that like secret area. Like I'm gonna find this like little detail, and then oh I found Rosaria's bedchamber. Oh I'm gonna walk across the invisible platform to get like join the Dark Moon Covenant. Like it has these little things that like this game has them. But I think Dark Souls 3 took that direction in level design. So that's all I don't know to say about Dark Souls 3 because I think Nick gives Dark Souls 3 a lot of shit. I think he likes it. Oh, the other thing I was thinking about this too, and we'll talk about. We'll see if I can bring this up later on too. But Dark Souls 3. Name me a From Software game that you've played more PvP in than Dark Souls 3, and I guarantee you, if you are an enjoyer of these games and you've played them, you played more Dark Souls 3 PvP than literally any other game. And I think that's just true for anybody. Nick probably is gonna say, "Oh, well, actually, I played more. I played more Dark Souls 2 because I love that game and I have a giant boner for Dark Souls 2." You're an outlier. That game sucks. It doesn't suck, but you know. Yeah. Dark Souls 3 PvP online, playing this game with your friends is super fun. Dark Souls 3, awesome multiplayer experience. The best at any From Software game. Elden Ring sucks. Dark Souls 2 is a pain in the ass to like get it set up. Bloodborne had some cool moments, but nobody plays it anymore. And also like this game this game has good multiplayer, but it's also like same thing. It's so simplistic. Like you're just gonna run into the same thing over and over and over again in terms of PvP. The PvP in this game gets very stale. It's good, but it's very stale very quick. Dark Souls 3, however, you can sink hundreds of hours into the PvP alone in the game. It's basically its own fighting game.
Mordran has a way of indifferently welcoming you and acknowledging your presence while making no effort to be hospitable towards you. You are in this quiet and serene landscape, and it couldn't care less that you're there. It's in this way that the beginning of Dark Souls 1 is tonally distinct from 2 and 3. The second and third game really hype you up as being that guy as you march through cutscenes and dialogue that welcome you back to a somewhat familiar setting with that "oh shit, here we go again" attitude as they hoist you into more linearly sequenced levels that have more of a familiarly video gamey feel to them. Let's contrast the tutorials of Dark Souls 1 and 2 as a microcosm of this. Dark Souls 2 plops you into the things betwixt where you are greeted by the cackling hags that know who you're supposed to be without knowing who you are. As you progress past them, the level flows from left to right to left as it runs you through tutorials and tries to ensure you kind of know what you're doing. Dark Souls 1, however, gives you some messages in a hallway, a few meat puppets to beat up, and then a skill check, knowledge check boss fight that you have to 5-shot before it lets you run free in the world. The opening of Dark Souls 1 is unmistakably more subtle, and most of us will remember what these first moments of the game felt like. Some might point to the subtlety of the tutorial's presentation as a fault. I would make the case that Dark Souls 1's tutorial is tastefully minimalistic, and while plenty of people would disagree, maybe, contending that a tutorial really ought to hold your hand if the game isn't going to, what stands out to me is that it feels like a deliberate choice of tone, not just corner cutting. As if you, just by circumstance, ended up here instead of some other hero. The world could not care less. And once the asylum has set the stage for the level design to come, complete with extra unlocky doors, loopy staircases, keys that you don't have yet, and the world trying to kill you, you step out to a vista of sorts, but you aren't given time to relish in the beauty as Velka allegedly kidnaps you, yaps your ear off a little bit more, and drops you right here in Firelink Shrine. So let's go back to that thing I mentioned earlier about Dark Souls 1's world requiring attention from the player. Or perhaps intention is the correct word. You see, Dark Souls 3's tutorial ends with you teleporting to the High Wall of Lothric from Firelink Shrine, which took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out back in 2016. You'll remember that after the forward march of the High Wall of Lothric, it is pretty much a straight shot to the Undead Settlement, then the crossroads, swamp, catacombs, and so on, with only the occasional detour. The player is railroaded most of the way throughout the base game, not being able to choose which Lord of Cinder you fight first or last. And then just like that, the game is mostly over.
I do want to throw this out there, though. Yes, you don't choose which Lord of Cinder you fight, but you can choose to go to the Cathedral of the Deep early. You can choose to branch off that way, fight the Crystal Stage, go to the... You could do that before you do the Farron Legion. Like, the Abyss Watchers. You can do that beforehand. Like, you do... There is still choice. There is still choice. You can go to Irithyll and not have it's more of an ordering thing, I think, than like a... But like the world still does... It branches, and it does interconnect. Going back through Farum, like coming... Like, once you go through Farum Keep, going back through like that area, back to the swamp, back to the Great Swamp, there's still interconnection.
You might have noticed that I didn't mention the ability to kill the Dancer as a first real boss, unlocking some of the castle and the Consumed King's Gardens. This is actually one of my favorite sequence-breaking choices in Dark Souls 3, so much so that my most played character, the one that I finished 100%ing the game on, is the one where I took about 6 hours in the beginning of the game to kill the Dancer first.
I want to say, I've done this, and I hard disagree. I know, and this is purely opinion. This is purely opinion. Beating the Dancer early ruined Dark Souls 3 for me, because you go and you get the Titanite chunks and the Titanite scales, or Demon Titanite, but it's not called Demon Titanite in this game. Whatever, you know what I'm talking about. It upgrades the boss weapons. You go and you get that from there, and then the rest of the game is just cake. Like, you literally just plow through the rest of the game easy peasy because you've got a level 7 weapon or whatever, or a level 8 weapon. I think you can even get a level 9 weapon. I might be wrong.
But this level of choice is an outlier in Dark Souls 3's otherwise linearly constructed boss and area sequence. Now contrast that to a story that is as old as Now contrast that to an area... Fuck, what the fuck? Now contrast that to a story that is as old as the Age of Ancients itself. The Crow drops you into Firelink Shrine, and you curiously meander into a graveyard. You get ravaged by skeletons, and you die. If you're one of the lucky ones to turn around rather than to commit yourself to starting with the catacombs on your first playthrough, you might head back and go the way you came, maybe down an unsuspecting staircase, past a voiceless NPC, down a long, long elevator. And the enemies down here don't even attack you, so this must be the real start. And it's so dark, that's why it must be called Dark Souls. Wait, why can't I hit the go? Okay, the staircase. Compared to those other...
I want to say, and I don't know, like, when I played Dark Souls 1, again, like, coming back to it, I didn't go through down to the catacombs. I didn't go through the graveyard. I saw the skeletons, and I was like, oh, skeletons are endgame enemies. And maybe that's like preconceived notions from Dark Souls 3 because you don't really fight skeletons like in the early game. But I was like, oh, skeletons are like endgame. Like that's like Bowser. Like you're fighting Bowser when you're fighting the skeletons. Like that's not the start of the game. I didn't go that way. I did go down. I did go down to New Londo. And then the ghosts grabbed me, killed me, and then I went up the stairs.
Other areas, a new player will find some relative peace coming up here. Ascending into the Undead Burg, you'll work your way through an amazing first level until you come to a curiously quiet rampart. For first-timers, this is an incredibly rewarding fight. Once you piece the puzzle together, taking out the archers first and jump attacking the Taurus Demon, victory is yours. You've learned that a boss arena can be more than just a room to fight an enemy in. It can be a tool. Something you might have noticed is that these early bosses will more often be built around the arena that they're found in. And as a whole, this is something that the boss design in Dark Souls 1 wins points for over, let's say, Elden Ring. The fights in that game are very intricate, but
Well, I do want to backtrack just a little bit. The thing about the first level being amazing. Yes, the first level is so good in this area, going up into the whatever. And I want to say what it's really really good because it's easy, right? Like you're very scared of this world, because like you probably like maybe you played Dark Souls and you were like, I don't know anything about it, I'm going in completely, but most people like know, okay, the game is called Prepare to Die, right? Like people like know this game is hard, so you go into this game and you're like terrified, man. You're like, I don't want to die every 5 seconds, so you're scared. You go through this first level and it's like kind of easy. Like you still probably die a couple of times, like you get overwhelmed by the hollows because you don't know like how to space the enemies right or whatever, but like it really really paces you well. But then it throws in like the Black Knights. Like you don't have to fight the Black Knights, but you can.
most of the
It's
notable
really good.
fights take place in large, pretty, open, and often rectangular rooms. So, where bosses in Elden Ring might serve as just an epic test and a checkpoint, this game's bosses in rooms feel like a living part of the world. We just bested a demon who was hiding on a bridge, pouncing on unsuspecting passerbys. He escaped from hell to get here, and you just sent him back, so good job. From here, the game opens up to you with a few real options for your next boss. You can go make your way past the church and Andre, down to the garden, to the Moonlight Butterfly, or if you stumble across this key, you can use it to take on the Capra Demon right now, under the Taurus Demon. The game's seemingly intended path, however, is coming up to the church, working your way through this level, and fighting the gargoyles. They're required for getting into Sen's Fortress unless you would like to parry in front of this here pillar. But we're not doing a glitch speedrun, so right before we head up to the next required boss is the fabled elevator. This is where the map clicks for most players, and as you descend and Firelink Shrine reveals itself to you, you're left reflecting on the journey up here so far. It makes so much sense when you take a step back to look at it. They didn't really need to do this for the game to be good so far, but this is definitely a top 10 Watch Mojo gaming moment. Now that we're done marveling, we'll come back up here, kill the chickens, ring the thing, and if it's your first time, you might fuck around, get lost, not know what to do, and look it up, or quit the game. But we're not in this hypothetical, so let's go pick up the basement key and walk towards the depths. The way down is very obscure. I do find it funny that the game expects you to remember that one locked door right after Bridge Boy here, but in all fairness, and to the credit of Miyazaki's game design philosophy as a whole, you could probably figure it out if you checked item descriptions. That said, let's Snake Eater, Staircase, and Peak. They do it again. The level design in this game is no joke. With this being the second time this happens within a few gameplay hours of each other, Dark Souls really starts to instill in the player that you are in this world, and you are in the driver's seat to make the big choices while traversing it. The layout of the world creates a skill curve of sorts with getting from point A to point B. I went back and forth on whether or not this was the right time to wax poetic about the beauty of this, and honestly, I didn't trust myself to get the point across as well as if I just said, oh my god, this is so fucking cool. There is a reason that this funny website does not exist for any other Souls game. And this is a good time to hit this berg bonfire,
Asterisk.
head back down the stairs, or if you're
Yeah,
a
I've
real
watched the
gamer,
video
do
already.
this. Now, on the way down, let me actually talk about that bonfire really quick. This used to be a big point of conversation way back in the day when Dark Souls 2 came out. I haven't heard as many people talk about it recently, and that is mostly because of how From Software seems to have shifted their checkpoint design strategy with each game that they released after this. This part is fully conjecture and comparative, but I like this checkpoint system substantially more than the ones found in 2 or 3. There's something to be said overall about game size and content, but just take a second to look at the compared number of bonfires between Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. Each bonfire in Dark Souls 1 takes itself so seriously, and the other FromSoft games that actually does this the best is Bloodborne. These levels and worlds as a whole are designed with
Okay, well, there was a bit out there too. The games that that precede this one are also a lot harder in terms of like what you were going to encounter enemy wise in between the bonfires. So yes, the bonfires are a lot more plentiful in future games, but you're going to be fighting a lot harder enemies. Um, and I don't think Nick doesn't realize this or whatever. I think he's just paraphrasing because he doesn't want the video to be 5 hours long. Um, but yeah, I just thought I would throw that out there. I'm reading between the lines here.
So many different factors in mind, but what I would like to highlight here is the care put into the checkpoints. You find yourself reusing the same bonfire for multiple different purposes. The level design enables yet another layer of conscious choice in the way that you leverage.
I will say yes, that is very true though. It's not about the checkpoints being the checkpoints aren't just I'm finding another bonfire. The checkpoint is I found the route back to the bonfire, and now I can progress further.
Your resources such as Estus and humanity, along with the layout of the world to better interact with the challenges that it poses to the player. By the way, before I move on from Bloodborne for now, for those who are interested, I Dude, I'm having a stroke. I linked a Reddit thread in the description where a user dumped Bloodborne's map file and loaded it into a 3D model viewer so that you too can marvel in the excellence of From Software's map design. And it's kind of like the website, and I said the Dark Souls 1 was the only one with this kind of website, and it's still technically kind of true. Unless you can prove me wrong. I really looked. I couldn't find anything. If you guys find some, just put it in the comments. Anyway, back to the game. This kind of bonfire placement.
I haven't actually. Okay, I looked at the Dark Souls website that he keeps referencing, but I forget where's the painted world in all of that. Whatever.
Can be found all over, and a consequence of this type of checkpoint system is runbacks. Elden Ring mostly did a fantastic job at killing them, almost entirely with the Stake of Marika. But if you're cultured, you know what the runback of Reindeer Fuckland was like in Dark Souls 2. That is all to say. I don't actually mind a runback all too much. I learned the game through them, and it's funny because when this game came out, and really the only thing you had to compare it to was the far less played predecessor Demon's Souls and Dark Souls 2 soon after.
Demon's Souls sucks.
Back when runbacks were a widely accepted part of the game, they actually made Dark Souls 1's map design and bonfire placement stand out even more for the ability of one bonfire to be a rest point coming from one direction, a mid-level checkpoint for another, and a boss runback all at the same time. And this is one of those points of appreciation for the game that I think was lost to time, as the meaning of bonfires and the function of bonfires, graces, and stakes would all evolve alongside how the map.
I want to throw something out there too. Malenia, if I had to do a boss run back to that boss, I wouldn't have beat it. If I had to run through the whatever that the sunken Erdtree or whatever it's called, if I had to run through that area with those goddamn pestilence knights that are everywhere, I wouldn't have beat that boss. Or the giant centipede things and whatever. No, I wouldn't have beat that boss. And even without the level, even if it was just a hallway, right? Even if it was just a hallway, you had to run down for 10 seconds. Okay, maybe 20 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds. You just run down a hallway to get to the fog wall. I would have beat that boss. Because you die in 3 seconds. If it's the first time you're fighting that boss, you go into that room and she kills you instantly, probably for the first 15 attempts. So no, I wouldn't have beat that boss. In Elden Ring, boss runbacks not being a thing is a necessity. If there were runbacks in this game,
maps were made to match. On the whole, I like the Stake of Marika system, but while I mentioned Elden Ring alleviating the player of runbacks in that sense...
But then this goes back to what I was saying before. Dark Souls, the difficulty doesn't stem necessarily from the boss fights, but other things.
I think the game still handled the other checkpoints a little less gracefully on the whole. I can articulate this point best by coming back to the map. Really take a look at the Undead Parish and Undead Burg. Outside of being fantastically laid out levels that play smoothly, their impeccable design serves as not just a vehicle for gameplay, but also as a mode of traversal. Let's look at what I understand to be the most highly regarded legacy dungeon in Elden Ring, being Leyndell and the Sewers. They are laid out well and they play fantastically, but in isolation, that is really all they do because of the choice for Elden Ring to be an open-world game. Each of these larger, intricate areas serve as an homage to the game's roots and as a way to set up for their often important area boss. Once the levels are beaten, the player is often meant to continue forward through a singular open-world area. Imagine if Leyndell's capital was not only the crescendo of Elden Ring's mid-game, but if they were able to work in connections to various other points of importance on the plateau. But I think at this point, more comparisons on this would be outside of the scope of the video. I already had to cut like 15 minutes of me talking about Elden Ring's map choices. So, that's going to be for another time. And of course,
I'll talk about them though because I have the time, and I don't care how long this video is. Elden Ring. I'll make this brief. Elden Ring's level design, because that's not what this video is about. Elden Ring's level design is not Dark Souls. It's not Dark Souls. It's akin. The differences in Elden Ring to Dark Souls are akin to Sekiro and Dark Souls, right? They're completely different games. Like it follows like you roll, right? You roll and dodge rolling and R1 and R2. Like that's that. Otherwise, they're different games. And a lot of people went into. He talks about more about this later. A lot of people went into Elden Ring thinking like, oh, well, I'm never gonna have to play another From Software game again because Elden Ring will exist, and Elden Ring is just gonna be this perfect crescendo of what like Dark Souls was supposed to be. Dark Souls 4, guys. Elden Ring and Dark Souls 4. Remember when everybody was saying that? Remember when everyone was saying that Elden Ring is just Dark Souls with jumping? It's not. It's like Breath of the Wild with Dark Souls combat. It's more similar to that, right? It's more a Breath of the Wild game with Dark Souls combat than it is a Dark Souls game with like Breath of the Wild open worldness. Um, and it's reflected in the legacy dungeons as well. Like the dungeons are cool and the dungeons are fun to progress, but they're not Dark Souls level design. Um, they're not even like akin to like Dark Souls 3. They border on being around Dark Souls 3's level design. Like some of the good, like the Stormville Castle, that place is pretty cool. That has some like nice secrets in it, that are very Dark Souls 3 reminiscent. Yeah, and I want to bring this up too. I've played through Elden Ring twice. I've played through Dark Souls and Dark Souls 3 and Dark Souls Bloodborne and Sekiro. I've played through all of those games probably like 10 times, if not more. Like some of them, like probably Dark Souls 3, I've played through a lot more. Dark Souls 2, I've played through a lot less. Elden Ring is not replayable. As much as people are like, "Oh, like there's so much stuff to do. There's so much stuff to do." It's just not. It's fun the first time, but then when you get into you like remember when you open the doors to Limgrave and you were like, "Oh my God, it's so beautiful." That doesn't happen again. You open the doors to Limgrave and you're like, "Oh shit, I have to run like 7 miles and then to get this thing, and then I go over here. But if I go over here, then I'm gonna miss out on this thing." It's so daunting, and it's like when you first are in it and you're exploring it, you're exploring it. But then when you come back with hindsight, you're like, oh God, I don't want to do all that crap again. Like I just want to like play the. I want to boss rush it. See, this is what I'm talking about. Everybody just wants to boss rush the Dark Souls games on replay. So yeah.
that isn't to imply that the difference in layout and interconnectedness is an indication that Elden Ring's areas lack quality. However, it is the isolation of this high-quality area from the rest of the world that I mean to use as a point to articulate what makes Dark Souls 1's level design so damn cool. It always perplexed me how Dark Souls 1 had figured this out so well, and future games only rarely made efforts to directly replicate or evolve on Dark Souls 1's level design where they could. Can you imagine if they made an Elden Ring-sized game where the whole map was an evolution of Dark Souls 1's style? The game would not be released, and we would still be posting Wooper memes on the Elden Ring subreddit, but it would be cool when it released. Do you see what I mean? It puts into perspective.
I don't think it would. I think that it would be like it would just be an impossible task to overcome. Like imagine like you're getting through the game and you're like, because we're talking Elden Ring sized game, right? Open world with interconnectedness. Imagine you like open a door and you see Limgrave for the 500th time, and you're like, no, I want to go somewhere new, and then you just keep opening doors, and every door you open just opens to Limgrave.
perspective what makes the player's movement around the map so unique to this game and to gaming. Around the mid-early game, before you know it, you may go from Andre to Firelink Shrine by dropping through Darkroot and jogging up to the Valley of the Drakes. And making that decision is heavily contingent on the context of your current playthrough, which bosses you have to beat, which items you haven't collected, and which enemies you haven't killed yet, and that is precisely what makes it so great. The interconnectedness of the map design enables a dynamic intentionality in sequencing decisions between playthroughs. Outside of course, being enabled by the map design, the unsung hero here is the care put into these bonfire locations, and I would love to hear more people talk about this. So now that we understand why we must protect this bonfire at all costs, we will kill the dog, 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 and then get a key. But not before a little more. Let's turn around before I get carried away again. It's time for the depths. You'll forget this as a veteran player, but this area is brutal and scary. The level design here isn't my main focus though, it's the enemies. God forbid a new player gets their health cut in half here. It may just be the end of Timmy's playthrough if the frogs get to him here. I've had the opportunity to introduce nearly a dozen people to Dark Souls 1, and I tell every single one of them the same thing. Talk to Oswald after the gargoyles and buy 2 purging stones. Because if you don't, you are in for one hell of an adventure to get your...
I didn't do this. When I played through the game, I don't think I ever got cursed, but I knew what curse was from Dark Souls 3, and I think that I had some context that I knew about curse and how it cuts your health.
Your max HP back. Getting out is far higher friction than wandering in. For any longtime FromSoft head watching this video, before you scoff at the idea of the depths being considered a difficult area, think about the way you actually replay it. I'm willing to bet you play it the exact same way I do. You either skip it entirely or run through it as fast as possible. And I'm in 2 camps of thought on this one. On one hand, I consider running through this area to be considerably enjoyable. It goes relatively fast and almost feels like a platformer, which in retrospect I wish it didn't because I feel like these...
By the way, you definitely fell off there, right? Like when you were going down that and you hit the well, you definitely fell off there when you were recording this.
Next few areas are where FromSoft got the bright idea to make areas like these in future games, like... But on the other hand, when I sit with myself and meditate on why I spend so little time in the depths nowadays, and why it became second nature to love running through it as fast as possible, it's because I'm traumatized. Getting your health halved is traumatizing. The rats poisoning you as you take wrong turns is traumatizing, and falling down these holes when you are low on Estus is traumatizing. And if you are one of those people who swear that they are too cool and too good to have been traumatized by this comment section...
By the way, that jump scare where the rat jumps out of the fucking box, that got me when I was playing this game. I almost shit my pants. I sat up when that happened, when the rat jumped out of the box. This game is scary. And yeah, no, this area is traumatizing. This area is yeah, but it's very easy. This is the thing. This is the thing about Dark Souls. There's another Josh Strife quote, right? Dark Souls as a game is very easy once you've played it before. Once you know what to do, this game isn't hard. It's hard your first time because you don't know what to do, and you don't know that the rat's in the box, or you don't know that the frogs poison you, or that the frogs curse you. You don't know these things, so you walk around, and you've just walked through mostly yes, there's interconnected, but this is not what I mean by linear. What I mean by linear is you're walking through the area, and yes, there's choices, but the path is very clearly laid out for you. In this, it's you're in a sewer, and there's a corridor to your right and a corridor in front of you. Which one do you take? I don't know. I'm gonna go to the right. You go to the right, and you fall down the entire map, and then these things jump on you, right?
Is not for you. This is a safe space for those who have almost lost their way in the depths. Sorry, that was a trauma response. Every single thing I just said about the depths is even better applied to Blighttown, but if you've played the game, you already know that. With the intention of this video being to
I kind of want to disagree with this, because IMO, and maybe I'm wrong. Blighttown is very linear. Blighttown, going whichever way you come, right? If you go Master Key way, through the Valley of the Drakes, or if you go from the depths, either way you slice it, Blighttown's very linear. There's like one path that you walk down, and you're changing levels, and you're walking over the platforms and stuff, and like there's a couple of branching off, but they usually when those things branch off, and they go to like the Firekeeper's soul. Like they go to very important like key items, and then you turn back around and you come back the way you came. Versus the depth, you take a wrong turn and you were cursed, or you take a wrong turn and you're like locked in a room with a bunch of rats and like a channeler or whatever. Like that's why I think they're very different.
And discuss standout parts of Dark Souls 1 in ways you maybe haven't heard before. FromSoft Games design choices, checkpoint and map elements, to how the community's understanding of the game and how a veteran might replay it have evolved. I would love to take a moment to appreciate Blighttown for one of Dark Souls 1's biggest strengths and one of the town's least discussed characteristics. The lore, the environmental storytelling of this area is deeply tragic. Blighttown's infamy for being an evil, funny swamp area in a Souls game precedes it so prominently that its tragedy has been buried. The signs of a once modest mining settlement on the cliffs of the underbelly of Lordran are readily apparent to those who take a moment to pause and ponder. A look at one of New Londo's sealers, Yulva, proves what this town used to be. A home. She wanted to return to her home and do what she could to heal and restore it to what it used to be, and it claimed her life. I'm willing to bet you understood the troubles of this town, even if you aren't too much of a lorehead. There are those who looked after this town. The Izalith tragedy ravaged the town to near unrecognizability. An area with few notable cutscenes to its name, yet belonging to it is a deep, tragic story that likely surprised none of you to hear for the first time on account of it being masterfully conveyed through its design and characters. And that is beautiful. Just slowly looking around the town, you can pick up so many bits of what it might have looked like before everything happened. And it's too bad our chosen undead isn't an empath, eh? Dispose of Titty Spider, ring the bell, and watch our giant friend open the doors to the funhouse. You're not done, though. You have to make your way back out. And getting out can feel as difficult or maybe even more difficult than the way in. This feeling of descent into Blighttown and the ascent out is truly a moment that this game can call its own. It's a carefully balanced act that you'll find yourself holding your breath as you dive deep into a forgotten bog, and what you find in your time there is more sad than it is scary, and shortly after your sense of accomplishment begins to wane, it hits you that you still have to make it out alive. So you begin to search for your light at the end of the tunnel. You find it, and you earn your breath of fresh air, and by now you get it. With this next area included, do you notice anything particular about the last 3 areas? All of them are trying to kill you. I think that's pretty funny. In fact, the concept of this whole area is really funny to me, in both lore and gameplay. This place is built from the ground up by the lords to keep us, humans, or hollows, or undead, out of Anor Londo. That's right. There is NIMBY commentary in Dark Souls. The lords need the humans to be farmed for their souls and humanity, cursed to an unending cycle of revival until they lose the very purpose that kept them going. But I don't want them in my backyard. Sense Fortress is another one of this game's weeder areas. Like a difficult class meant to tempt the faint-hearted to divert from an area of study. This is a place where many players are tempted to give up on the game. It is a beautiful microcosm of Dark Souls 1's ability to abstract and then reconstruct fundamental narrative and philosophical elements from the game's motifs, stories, and inspirations into felt experiences for the player. It is in this context that you can begin to take a step back to look at the whole game and understand what makes the experience of this game so uniquely compelling. The game's cohesion starts with well-designed levels and satisfying bosses on the surface, but as you move through this world, trip, struggle, fail, fall, try again, you might learn something more about the nature of perseverance and maybe even something about yourself in the process. It's satisfying and, dare I say, fulfilling. Themes of what it means to be human and parallels between hollowing and depression or giving up and losing purpose are both captured in the systems and story of the game. It's both you, the player, and presumably the character who are on this roller coaster that they can get off of at any time, but decide to persevere despite the world saying, indifferently, fuck you at every turn. The same way that Sen's Fortress's ruthless gatekeeping is felt viscerally by the players on their first journey, the fact that this game's often obtuse lore and narrative are translated to the player in the way that the game feels, whether they recognize it or not, is truly special. The sweet crescendo of the early game, Anor Londo. often thought by new players and Souls first-timers to be the final area of the game. I don't think I have any hipster opinions on Anor Londo as a whole. The scenery is earned, it's epic and majestic and such. It has an equally difficult boss to match the scale of the area, and moreover, the two largest rewards in the game, after the boss, hand you a large bowl. I will now do my best to make you drink the Kool-Aid from this said bowl, and I will preface it by saying that I like all the Souls games a lot. Are we good? Okay, buckle in. While there is some nuance to my take, I won't pull punches when I say that the video game, Dark Souls, is made the strongest of all the games in the trilogy by warping being a locked feature up until this point in the game. Now, if that feels like a crack smoker take to you, or if your first game in the series was Elden Ring or maybe Dark Souls 3, and your conception of Souls was formed with warping unlocked from minute zero, please hear me out. Much of what I've mentioned in this video has been level design and
I've got stuff to say about this. Let's hear him out.
world cohesion. It appears obvious to me that those things, which I will refer to as world design, are somewhat of an Ouroboros. As a game designer attempts to make a 3D checkpoint-based world, there are many choices that they have to balance for the game's experience to feel good to a player, especially if a large gameplay element is setbacks and failure. And in specific, it's that I think Dark Souls 1 does this so much better than the other games that I am comfortable giving it this accolade. Let's imagine what would happen if there was only one bonfire in the game, Firelink. At that point, you have effectively constructed the 3D combat RPG analog to a Faudian game. If you're not familiar, those are games like Getting Over It or Pogo Stuck, where, as you progress through the game, you are constantly at risk of being reset to the beginning. Those games are relatively short and are able to be speedrun in a couple minutes. If they were super long, they would lose their luster to most people and would mostly be given up on before even getting close to finishing. And God forbid you unknowingly ride the snake towards the end. Faudian games are for
I did that.
a very specific kind of people, because their draw and scope are made more narrow. The games are fun for players who don't mind getting reset to the beginning of a specific challenge that they are trying to master or overcome, knowing that there will be a definitive end to it. They are difficult and obtuse for the sake of it, and we can agree that all the Souls games would kind of suck if there was only one single checkpoint at the beginning of the game and you were meant to blitz through it all in one go, or else you fail. The one exception I could think of is maybe Sekiro, and specifically its boss rush mode, or at least if Sekiro was made around its boss rush mode and that was the game as a whole. The idea of Sekiro is that you are mastering the combat and passing the tests that are the bosses. In a Faudian game, this would mean
Okay, and I don't know if he meant that this doesn't happen in Sekiro, but like it does to a certain extent, because like the paths, right? Like you have to, like when you do the boss rushes for the rewards or whatever, you do have to do them all in one go, otherwise you reset.
mastering the movement mechanics and displaying your knowledge on some really kind of obnoxious jump. And if
Okay, I wanted to bring this up too.
Sekiro was
I
really
don't think. Okay, when I first watched this video, I noticed down here, that right there, in the corner under the health bar, I believe that is no Kuro's charm. I'm pretty sure that that's no Kuro's charm. Did you do this intentionally, Nick? Because like I know that you have not played much Sekiro. I mean, you haven't played that much Sekiro compared to like how much you play the other games. Have you just not had Kuro's charm the entire time, and that's why you like don't like Sekiro? Just wondering. Because if you don't know what that means that the game is just harder. Like for that is like you don't do this unless you've played this game 5 times, like level of harder.
has just its boss rush mode and was built around it. I could at least see a cult following forming around it, and it being appreciated for its deep mechanics and enjoyability, as it would cater particularly well to the masochistic among FromSoft fans, which are not few in number. We now share an understanding of one extreme example of what would happen to a Souls game if the checkpoints were warped unrecognizably. On that other extreme, let's imagine what would happen if we tripled the bonfires in Dark Souls 1. The added safety and reduction in suspense, or losing souls in progress, would dissolve much of what the balanced challenge that we've come to love the game for means. The Undead Burg bonfire that we use to run back to Capra Demon, or go up to the parish, or use as a checkpoint back to Firelink, or just like use as the actual level bonfire, would lose much of its intricacy if there were, let's say, a bonfire between the Undead Burg and Firelink. If there were a bonfire right before the depths, the shortcut after the Capra Demon that heads back to Firelink Shrine would also be...
These areas that he's pointing out too, I wonder if they like meant to put like if there were bonfires there. You know what I mean? Like because they look like places where a bonfire would be. Just speculation. Um. Okay. Warping. As somebody who played Dark Souls 3 the first, like pretty much played Dark Souls 3 first, I agree, and I think this game is really, really awesome for not letting you warp at the start of the game. And you only get the ability to warp when warping becomes a necessity, pretty much. I mean, not a necessity, but like you can still run there. But like it would like people would quit the game if you had to run all the way back through Anor Londo and then all the way back through Sen's Fortress. Um, so yeah, I agree. I think that the warping mechanic being open from the very beginning, um, I think it's a necessity of the later games. But I do agree that I think this game is amazing for not letting you do that. And it's not that they're like not letting you; it's that you don't need it. Like you don't need the ability to warp. There's anywhere you want to go in this game, like in the first half, like before you've rung the 2 bells, you could walk there in like 5 minutes, at maybe longer. I don't know. It's not that long, and there's interesting stuff to do on the way. And hey, if you've like done it before, there's always another route. Like you can go a different way, and you can pick up like if you're running through the areas, picking up items and doing what the area is meant to be done. Like there are 3,000 different ways that you can go, and you're always picking up items, always finding something new, always fighting a Black Knight, always doing something. You don't have to go the same way. That's why I think like the warping becomes a necessity at Anor Londo, because like you to go all the way back through all of that, you would have to just walk through Anor Londo, walk through Sen's Fortress, shit that you've already done. But at the beginning, right? Like let's say you had the Master Key, right? You go down, you do Blight Town, you beat Quelaag as like your first boss, and then you go up. You go up like the other way through through to the depths, and you're like, oh wow, I don't have the depths key. I don't have the key to this or whatever, right? So you have to go through and you have to like beat Capra and whatnot. So then you can go down through the depths the other way, then come back, and then you can go through the depths that way, and then go down through the Blight Town. But you've already beat Quelaag, so you can go up through the Blight Town the other way. That was maybe a bad example, but I think you get what I mean. Like, you can always come from a different direction. So if you're going through an area, you can leave through the other direction to like continue the game. Whereas like Dark Souls 3, warping is a necessity because where the path splits off at Cathedral the Deep to like or like going through Farum, you need warping because you have to go back to get the doll. You have to go back to like progress to the Irithyll. You have to go. You have to go back and forth to these different places, and they're not walkable. And I don't think they are even connectable. I don't think they could have made the map like the maps are just bigger. And I mean, maybe they could have put an elevator somewhere in like the catacombs that shot all the way back up to Farum or back up to the Great Swamp or whatever. But even if they did do that, there's just still too many different directions. Like warping is a necessity in those games. And maybe they could have just made Dark Souls 1 like again and just design a completely different map based on like making it interconnected or whatever, but that's not the point. The point is that Dark Souls 3 like you need warping. Otherwise the game is just unbearable to play.
considerably less useful and interesting. Now imagine those bonfires were there, and you could warp between them from the onset of the game. Not only does that take out an interesting element of traversal and resource management from the game, it almost makes you wonder if the game's level design is even that good. These new bonfire areas would be, on their own, more of dead ends than checkpoints. The active balancing act of matching Dark Souls 1's Freak, aka
First time I watched this video, I didn't know that was an attack. I've never been hit by that attack because I'm so terrified of those enemies that like I don't even know their moveset. If I do kill them, it's when I have like a giant curved greatsword with 99 dex and I'm like two-shotting them because I have never been hit by that attack because I'm terrified of those enemies.
Making its level design strong while integrating those levels into an appropriately cohesive world, those two things are deeply linked.
Not even that I'd never been hit by that attack. I didn't even know that attack existed.
And the nature of their relationship would change if, let's say, the fastest way around was warping. It would remove the point of these quirky shortcuts that we've come to adore the game for. Not only would this hypothetical remove much of the utility of this cool design, but the game might simply just flow better without these little connective bits. And from the get-go in 2 and 3, you can warp between all these bonfires. This is the reason that Dark Souls 1's world design is so distinct even within the series. And that isn't to disparage the direction that the other games took. Dark Souls 2 and 3 did what they did pretty well. Moreover, getting around the world of Dark Souls 1, even if I say it's more cohesive or better than the other games, takes longer, and some people just don't like that. That distinction also makes the other games significantly more accessible, which in particular is why I think Dark Souls...
I do want to throw one thing out there. We kind of forget in this modern era of like 50 90s and whatnot. Loading screens used to be a big deal. Those loading screens. Even on a PlayStation 4. If you played Dark Souls 3 on a PlayStation 4, you had long ass loading screens. So I'll throw this out there. Yes, it's probably faster to warp to some places, but you still have to sit at like a minute or two on a loading screen. Like some of these loading screens. Does anybody remember Release Bloodborne? I only played it a couple times. I didn't complete the game until later on. But Release Bloodborne legitimately had like 3 or 4 minute loading screens. You can walk to most places in Dark Souls 1 in like the time of some of these loading screens in these games. So like while you say like, oh, it might be faster, like yeah, when you have a supercomputer, then yeah, it's faster to warp. But you know, sometimes these loading screens.
Souls 3 is such a fantastic game for people who are new to the series. But I will take my point a step further by reminding y'all that while the most accepted praise of Dark Souls 1 is probably the map and levels, the warping dynamic, as compared to future games, is often separated in conversation, if at all included. And that is strange because I would contend that the lack of warping from the onset of the game is the exact reason that Dark Souls 1's map is the way it is. Because they had designed this world with walkability first, not warpability. Why does this feel like a bikes versus cars discussion? Yeah, after bringing up NIMBY earlier, I'm not beating the socialist allegations, but whatever. If I don't have you on board with this discussion yet, or if you were with me up until I started making this sweeping comparison, let me hold your attention on this point just a little bit longer so that I may share one more idea. It's possible that you're mostly on board that Dark Souls 1 is made great by its world, but reject the assertion that the balance between warping and the levels are enough to pull Dark Souls 1 above other games. And maybe you're right, but if you're watching this and you think that, you might have another game in mind that you believe does all these things, but a little bit better. As I mentioned earlier, Bloodborne, many people's most beloved game, has the most similar map to Dark Souls 1. Why? How come? Certainly it could be a coincidence. If this video proves anything, it's only that there is a ton to appreciate about every single one of the Souls-like that FromSoft has made. But I'm happy to assert that this similarity is because Bloodborne's map design runs the closest to Dark Souls 1. While you may not be able to warp between...
You did make me turn my head sideways first time I watched this.
...lanterns in the same level, warping is available from the beginning of the game between the Hunter's Dream and Yharnam. This makes it a super interesting dynamic and a side evolution of what Dark Souls was trying to do. The difference in style is partially due to the hub being segregated from the rest of the map, and from the ground up, each chunk of the world that is separated by these different tiers of lanterns in the hub are designed to be able to be navigated by walking rather than warping. Now, if you like either of these games, obviously I'm not implying that the only thing you like about them...
Back to loading screens, by the way. We were talking about Release Bloodborne, the 5-minute loading screens. Like, if you died in Bloodborne, you're legitimately... It's like, oh, I can go to the bathroom and, like, make a drink and come back, and this game will still be loading, right? So, like, yeah, walkability first, kind of a big deal in Bloodborne 2, because it was just a poorly optimized game when it first came out.
Or the only thing worth liking about them is...
Not poorly optimized. It was ahead of the hardware. It was ahead of the hardware.
Is the map or level design. Hell, I have a few friends in mind that probably would not have given any of this any thought before watching and would still rank Bloodborne as their favorite, citing almost literally any other great
Flint0725.
thing from the game than this, which is super valid. But I think only good things have happened to the games that have cared about that the most. I would love to see more people vocalize their love for this type of thing. That game is balanced upon many strong themes and mechanics, but nobody would feel the same about it if the world was delivered in a significantly weaker way. Now the end.
Okay. You're probably expecting me to go on like a long-winded, like, let me talk about Bloodborne, like, let me, like, oh, like, Bloodborne, yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna do it. That's maybe a second video. That's maybe like another video that I make or whatever. What I do want to bring up though is, and it's something I've been thinking about too, and that your video really made me like come together with this thought. You could have made this video about Bloodborne and then compared it in that chapter to Dark Souls 1. Like the roles could be completely reversed because the games are so similar. The games are so similar in terms of like world design and in terms of like how they play out, right? Um, like they're so similar that it's like walkable interconnected levels that like loop back to each other that and then it like culminates in like this like fight with like the being that oversees the world, right? So like lore wise they're already a little bit, I mean they brand, I'm not like making like I'm making broad stroke claims as like a comparison tool, not because like I actually believe them, right? Okay. These games are so similar. The broad open walkable worlds that like the main game, and then DLCs that are just like they tell a really cohesive linear story with four bosses, five or whatever, that that just tell that story, right? Like it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Old Hunters DLC and the whatever the Artorias DLC for Dark Souls, they're like the same thing, right? You go in and Old Hunters, you fight Ludwig. Artorias, you fight Artorias, right? And then after that you go through the research halls and you fight the I'm just gonna like I'm gonna group together what are the blue things called, like living failures, the living failures and Maria. I'm just gonna group them together. It's like that area's boss together. You go through that area, living failures, that, and then same thing for Dark Souls. Like you go through the area and you fight like Manus. You go through the whatever it's called, um, and then like it culminates like Bloodborne. You fight Orphan of Kos, and then uh, Dark Souls you fight Calamite. You could do. I will say Dark Souls. You could do it in a little bit. You could do it. You could do Calamite first, whatever you prefer. Um, they deliver very similarly. And then I would almost even say like probably like Manus and Orphan are together, and then like oh after all of that you can go back and you can fight Lawrence, or you can go back and you can fight Calamite, right? It's like the same thing. It's the same idea. That's why the Old Hunters DLC is so good. That's why I think Bloodborne is so good, and why I think Bloodborne is like the like peak game, is because it did Dark Souls and then it made it like more fun. Because remember I was talking about how like oh Dark Souls you could only interact with the game with like two buttons. Bloodborne, you have like the trick weapons, which are so freaking cool, and they didn't like overload. They didn't overload the combat system. I think the Dark Souls is overloaded in terms of combat. I think it's fun that you have like variety. Um, like I like it, but when it comes to like making the game as good as it can be, it's way easier to balance the game around a handful of weapons than to balance a game around like, because they still haven't gotten it right. They've never gotten it right. Dark Souls 1 sorceries were OP. Dark Souls 3 sorceries suck, right? Like you can't find the balance. And it's like, oh, in one game, like strength weapons. Oh my god, hyper armor, poise, like, or oh, R1 spam. Haha, you use a rapier and you R1 spammed. Like The balance sucks. Bloodborne, it doesn't matter what weapon you use. Obviously, like Saw Cleaver is the best weapon in the game, like all hands down. Um, but otherwise, the weapons are all like really balanced, and people will go in and be like, "Oh no, no, you're wrong. Like the boom hammer sucks, man. The boom hammer freaking sucks, and like, and the Logarius wheel. Okay, the Logarius wheel like actually does suck, but like all these weapons that people say suck, I've gone through and I've played the game with them, and then I'm like, well, they're not that bad. Like, obviously, it would have been easier if I just had the saw cleaver, but like, they're not that different. I mean, they're different. They're not that much like weaker. It's a really, really balanced game. Guns, some of the guns are a little bit weird. Like, and it's when it's like when they throw in like the flame sprayer or whatever. Like, the game was obviously not balanced around the flame sprayer. Like, you can still do cheesy things, but it's like the core weapons that you use, like doing an arcane build and just throwing the consumables, like throwing the whatever, like that can get kind of cheesy in the same way like sorceries do in this game. I don't know, but yeah, I get the conclusion. They're similar games.
Endgame has begun. But you can't warp to every bonfire. It's here that you'll need to use your aggregated experience from up until now. You'll feel that the mere navigation of the world has a skill curve and skill expression. All of that time spent intimately learning the world by playing, discovering what would happen if you hit an illusory wall here to unlock a fire, learning the fastest way to descend into the Darkroot Basin. In these moments, as you recognize that the placement of the Lord Vessel has unlocked your ability to further traverse these areas, that maybe you'd only given a couple cursory visits prior, there is an undeniable charm about the freedom of choice and expression you're given when it comes time to move around the map or take a personal quest off of your list. Perhaps in replaying the game, you remember that before you visit Nito, you would like to join the Covenant and have a little bit of fun in multiplayer.
That was a nice move.
Or just unlock an achievement. If you've already ventured into the catacombs, you're given a choice to revisit this here Skelly Hole by trekking down from Firelink, or in the remaster, visiting everyone's favorite skeleton dwarf, Blacksmith. As a quick aside, I love their attention to detail here when they recorded this guy's voice lines on what I can only assume to be a $20 webcam's microphone.
Be gone with you.
I don't want to talk about this because it's not even like it's literally they probably paid somebody $5. Listen to it one more time.
I can only assume to be a $20 webcam's microphone.
Be gone with you. You'll spoil my focus.
No doubt you've
That's not what that guy is supposed to sound like. That's not what that guy's supposed to sound like. Be gone with you. You'll spoil my focus. It's supposed to be something like that, or like be gone with you. You'll spoil my focus. Or he could even be like a silly skeleton. He could even be a silly skeleton. He could be like, be gone with you. You'll spoil my focus. You know? It's just some British guy. Be gone with you. You'll spoil my focus.
noticed the repeated emphasis on these fringe scenarios that highlight moments where the game enables niche, playthrough specific decisions. Real people worked together to bring forward a vision of this world that contains plenty of narrative and gameplay meaning, but also an unexpected degree of personalization. And the very idea that a player could miss a detail, wasting precious dev hours, is taboo. When something is included in a game that most players will not be able to appreciate for its difficulty to access, that to me is proof that the world has been brought to life. And I don't just say that about areas like Ash Lake. I mean the very experience that from the ground up you could be trekking through the world in a different way than someone that you know. That is no accident. Let's say, hypothetically, the second half of Dark Souls 1 was weaker than the first half. Well, too bad it's not a hypothetical. You know, even if the experience of traversing the map at this stage meaningfully evolves, I think we can all agree that the endgame content is a different discussion. It's an often levied criticism of the game that the areas become haphazardly thrown together and the boss quality drops significantly after you leave the bull with the throat goat. And I really like the second half of the game, or at least I'm very good at gaslighting myself into thinking that the DLC is the actual second half of the game. And since the content is passable enough to anyone on a first playthrough, allow me to instead share how I enjoy the end game as a veteran, and from the perspective of someone who likes to find the replay value in these games and deeply enjoys that element of them. This leg of the game's glaring weaknesses are the Tomb of Giants, Lost Izalith and kind of the Demon Ruins, and to varying degrees, these guys. For the most part, I approach all of these areas in the same way that I approach the depths, and that is running through them really fast. As I get better at each of these areas and faster with each of these runs, the idea of...
You didn't show it, so I don't know if you mean this too, and I don't know if you talk about it either, but the archives, really not that bad of a, like, people hate on it, but that area's kind of good. It doesn't, I will say it's not very Dark Souls, like, it's not interconnected or anything, right? Like, from a world design perspective, it's, like, not any better than any of the other areas, but, like, it's kind of fun. It's like, it's fun in, like, a Dark Souls 3 way. It's like, it's fun to go through it. I know we talked about it before, and, like, your criticism is that you don't like dying to Seath. You don't like that it forces you to die to Seath, or whatever. And then that whole trek up through the siren area is kind of annoying, or whatever those things are. Yeah.
Revisiting a less than stellar part of the game really doesn't bother me that much. There are a lot of really solid elements to a lot of these areas, and one of the best things about running through them really fast and creating my own fun by optimizing them as much as possible is that I not only get to avoid much of what makes the areas not great, but I also get to forget about a lot of the stuff that makes them really good. Which means by the time I want to come around and play through them normally, I get to rediscover hidden treasures or re-experience some heartfelt storylines. It's a nice cycle of appreciating the strengths that the game has and then creating my own fun. But don't be too fooled, right? These areas are weaker, yes, but on the whole they're not bad. And it's okay to get a little creative to find your fun where you may otherwise lose your patience and have that be tested a little bit. But this strategy...
Yeah, no, I agree. Even like Lost Izalith, right? Like, people like oh my god, that area sucks. Like, the lighting and, like, the Prepare to Die edition, like, burning people's monitors. You know, like, all of that aside, like, the area where you fight the big, like, tentacle creature, the ones that I was talking about earlier, like, I didn't know the attack existed. That area where you, like, fight those and you drop down and there's the Titanite demons and stuff or whatever. Are there those there? I don't know. That area's kind of cool. And the witch and fighting the witches, that end area right before Beta Chaos, not bad.
not work quite as well with the bosses. So would you believe me if I said that the boss I look forward to fighting most of all of these is the Bed of Chaos? Dark Souls 1 is old. You probably know this, but Demon's Souls could barely make it out of the womb, and I'm pretty sure the execs at Bandai were trying to use the good old coat hanger on Dark Souls 1, but that means this game is unbalanced as a motherfucker. Now, I'm not under the guise that this is intentional by any means, but this kind of makes for a fun, choose-your-own difficulty, where if you want to have an easier time with the game, you use a Black Knight or Twinkling Titanite weapon. If you want to have an okay time, you do your lore build or whatever, and if you want a challenge run, there's plenty of ways to do that. But because it's broken to all hell, that means it is jank, and these bosses are cheesable, baby. It's like when you go through an old Zelda game, and let's say you unlock the bomb in a dungeon or something, and then at the very end on the boss, instead of having a real combat, you just throw the bomb at the boss a couple times at the right time, and the game says, okay, good, you did good job. This is, and I'm not joking, literally how I play these bosses. I fight them all the exact same way each time. Four Kings, I walk up with Havel and a big weapon. Nito, let him kill his skeletons and beat the shit out of him with the club I got from Anne Orlando. Seath,
So yeah, you didn't talk about Seath in this. Seath has a very, very easy cheese. It's easier than all of these, actually, except for maybe just like putting Havel's armor on. But right, all you have to do is you just walk up to him, make him do the close range breath attack, then you walk back, and then he does the long range one. Like, you just walk close and walk back, walk close, walk back, and then you just hit him in his weak spot on his stomach over and over, and he'll just repeat the same attacks over and over again.
I don't think too hard about this one, if I'm being totally honest. I mean, like, Bleed's
Even if you don't cheese Seath, though, he's not hard.
good, I think. but I usually just get frustrated because I'm trying to cut the tail off even though I'm not running an intelligence character. And the Bed of Chaos. You get a bow, you get some firebombs, or you memorize the route and save quit like crazy, and the boss is super easy. I love fighting.
I want to throw something out there too. Not a hot take. Not a hot take. Fuck the Bed of Chaos. Fuck the Bed of Chaos. It's such a shit boss. Horrible design. Horrible. Worst shit in this game. That would be made less atrocious if the run back wasn't what it was, right? This boss sucks. It's jank. It's awful. I mean, you could fill like 37 pages of insults and degradations about about this boss. This boss sucks. This boss is horrible. 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 It's the worst boss in the game by far. It's the worst boss FromSoft has ever made, maybe. It's really bad. It's really, really, really bad. It's not even really a boss fight. It's like if platforming. It's like if you were playing Getting Over It, like back to the Faudian game thing. It's like if you were playing Getting Over It, but instead of like just like taking your time and like climbing up an area, there was a giant like hand that just came and just pushed you back to the start every 5 seconds, and the game is just. That's the Bed of Chaos, right? But it wouldn't be that bad, and in fact, it could be kind of a fun puzzle boss if you didn't have to run through the entire area to get back to it. Put a Stake of America at Bed of Chaos, and even with not cheesing it could become slightly more enjoyable. Like if it didn't have the run back that it did, it would not be. I would have way, way, way less problems with it. Like it's still jank, it's still annoying, it's still like probably not like the best design for a boss or whatever, but at least it's unique. It's unique and it poses a different sort of challenge. It uses the entire thing. Like this game, you've been pressing R1 for probably the entire game, and this boss actually makes you do something else. So like there are good things about the Bed of Chaos. But but it's just impossible. It's impossible to look at the good things because you die and then you have to run you have to run for 5 minutes. It takes longer to run back to the Bed of Chaos from the bonfire than it does to like run through like the entire first area or through Blighttown for that matter. If you come down from Firelink through like the Master Key door and go down Blighttown to Quelaag, it's probably like the same amount of time to get to Quelaag from Firelink as it is to get back to the Bed of Chaos.
Them and beating them as fast as possible because they're not why I'm here. I'm just, they're required, so I kill them. But if I wanted a good, cool boss fight, I would go get sucked in by the monkey hand, right? Like, I'm just here to dump in these guys' mouths on some victory lap shit. And learning to cheese these guys is a unique process in and of itself. You learn your own unique skill set, and it leads to mastery of these specific mechanics that you often don't use otherwise, like bow aiming and fire bombs. I've got a mean free-aimed firebomb. Catch me in the arena in Elden Ring, you won't. Even with all of these quality hiccups in this part of the game, there's a reason that it is still in the conversation. There's something to be said about bigger not necessarily meaning better, and with the game being much smaller than something like Elden Ring, you get a tight package. Does that sound weird? Should I say that? Whatever. The game is dense, and because of that, a bunch of the high points are all closely strung together. And I would love to talk about the DLC, but I really don't have anything interesting to say on it. It is beautiful. It is perfect to me. FromSoft DLC.
And it's the Old Hunters DLC before the Old Hunters DLC existed.
DLCs are already some of the best things in gaming, period. And you're watching a white boy do a video essay on Dark Souls. You don't also need to hear me tell you why Artorias of the Abyss or Ring City or the fucking Bloodborne one is good, right? And just like that, the game is about to come to an end. All it takes is you walking down into the Kiln of the First Flame, where the curtain is pulled back and you see that this whole Age of Fire thing is not what you thought it was. Gwyn burned those closest to him unrecognizably, further plunging the world of humans into chaos and scorching the world irreparably, starting something that we know continues for many, many thousands of years. I won't hear it from anybody that Gwyn is an underwhelming fight, because this game and this story doesn't need...
By the way, if you don't parry Gwyn, hard. That shit's hard. I don't know if I've done it. No, I did it once. I did it once. Okay, no parry, no sorceries. Gwyn is hard. Like if you try to like just fight him straight up, like his time, that one swing he does, where it's like instant and zero wind up.
An intense consort Radahn Mikola type boss fight. He is the Lord of Cinder now, not Sunlight. He is clearly crestfallen. And that's why you can parry him to death. Boom, boom, yeah. You know, this is actually where the video was supposed to end. But just like in the game, you don't actually have a choice. It just kind of keeps going. You're going to keep watching, because after you beat
This is about
Gwyn,
the new
you're
games.
forced into the next new game cycle. I incomparably prefer the fact that you get to wait to go into future new game cycles in other Souls games, but if there
Okay.
was ever a
If you want to see the ending of this video, because this has gone on long enough, if you want to see the ending of this video, go ahead, watch the video. I think the only things he talks about are things that I've already talked about, and I got to do the meat and potatoes of what I wanted to talk about. If you sat through this whole thing, thanks for watching. Go watch the original video. But this has been fun. These games are awesome. Nothing that I have said, like none of this is meant to be like shitting on Nick or whatever. I'm just trying to like share my opinion, another opinion from like a different perspective, because we have different perspectives about these games. So I just want to throw that out there. I'm not trying to like shit on him or shit on the video, or critique it in any way. I think it was a phenomenally done video, and I really enjoyed watching it. This is just my opinions, because we had conversations about what my opinions were, and I wanted to share them. So this has been React Andy reacting to Andy make a video about Dark Souls.